Since the beginning of film, filmmakers have strived to make the best images right out of the camera. From huge set pieces to sprawling matte painted backdrops and now huge real-time LED screen volumes, the best way for a piece of cinema to look and feel real for the talent, crew, and audience is for it to be real. However, if you don't have the budget, time, or talent for getting everything on set, you could be seriously restricted in the scope of realizing your imagination. That's where set extensions come in. I'm going to go over what set extensions are and explain how they are done. You might be making a feature or a short film and want some awesome sprawling mountains in the distance like the Lord of the Rings films had, right on set in New Zealand. But you don't happen to have the budget to fly down there or anywhere else with good mountains. Or you might want to film a gripping dogfight from World War II. Your problem? You don't have the original fighters from the period that are still operational, not to mention operating costs. These scenes would look best if they were filmed in camera, but for some reason or other, you can't get permission to shoot on top of the Washington Monument. Now what? Well, you could hire a professional matte artist to paint a piece of glass, stick it in the front of your camera lens, and hope it looks good enough for the shot. Or worse still, throttle your vision and stick to filming boring trees in the backdrop. But there's good news, because set extensions exist. Well, they don't exist until you make them, but still. So what are they? Set extensions are what I'm going to be using as a broad term for adding in stuff to your scene, especially landscape and architectural elements, which enhances the scope or realism of any particular shot. Now, since we've briefly gone over what they are, how can they be done? There are several programs you can use for these types of digital extensions, ranging from free to paid software. I'm going to stick to Blender and After Effects for these examples, although I have used programs like HitFilm to achieve results in the past. First, you'll want to film with the end goal in mind. What I mean by that is, you want to have a good idea about what you're going to be putting behind or in front of your talent before you actually shoot. The reason this is important is because this will affect the methods used to create the shot. For example, if you have a character in a dark cave, it wouldn't do to film him outside in broad daylight. You would have a terrible time trying to composite the elements together. Or, if you're filming something like an earthquake, you wouldn't want to have the camera locked off because it would be shaking if you were actually filming it live on set. All of this is to say, plan ahead, because it's far better to create an extension to fit your scene than to fix your scene to match the extension. If you're gaining any value or information from this video, please consider giving it a like so that more people can see it. Thank you. Once you've filmed it, you need to replace some stuff. How much of the scene you replace, whether it's the entire thing or just some elements on the horizon, will dictate the method I recommend using. If it's a far element that doesn't have much rotation or scale, like mountains or sky replacements, it's best to use a program like After Effects and make a 2D track and then place your elements. If your camera is moving a lot and is changing perspective, especially on close-up extensions, 3D is generally the best way to go. For that, I'd recommend Blender. You can 3D track the scene and use 3D elements for a much more believable effect than just 2D ones. Just a quick note here, you can make a 3D track in After Effects too. Then you can export the camera data into Blender. I'll link a video on how to do that in the description if you are so interested. Back to the video. Finally, you can composite your elements. Again, I'd recommend using After Effects or a similar software. After your elements are made and or placed, the next thing to worry about is occlusion. Occlusion is when one object crosses in front of another. In this scene, almost everything is replaced, so it occludes most of the character. At this point, you have to use masks, roto, or keying to put the character or object back on top, all of which I recommend using a program like After Effects for. As Ian Hubert showed in his green screen video, Blender can do it too, but only if you have a well-lit green screen. If you don't, as in this shot, After Effects is a far superior tool. You could mask it by hand, but a better method here is using the roto brush combined with some Luma key and matte refine tools. The last step is to color grade them. After Effects can do this, but Premiere Pro and even DaVinci Resolve are better options if you need ultimate creative control. I find it best to color correct each individual element separately to match the base footage, and then color grade everything together as a whole. And that's about it. If you want a more in-depth look at any of the topics or methods I went over, feel free to drop a comment below and I will read it. This is VFXpert, and I will see you in the next one.